Yeah, yeah. Dad came home by the sound of the door handle. I could already tell. I turned the TV volume down. Even though nobody had said a word, Mom suddenly smiled differently. I picked up my plate and disappeared into my room without a word. Hypervigilance, a big word for a little child who didn't know back then what they couldn't understand back then. Would later make them question and suddenly believe that they were simply born that way. Hey. At school I was easy to handle. I helped everyone, I never caused trouble. When others were sad, I noticed it immediately. When I was sad, I said, I'm fine. Until one day, I didn't even know anymore what fine was supposed to feel like. Yeah, parentification, a big word for a little child who didn't know back then what they couldn't understand back then. Would later make them question and suddenly believe that they were simply born that way. Oh, yeah. At 16, I fell in love. Sometimes I was the most important person in the world. Sometimes there was no answer for days. Every time I wanted to leave, another beautiful moment came back again, and I stayed. Intermittent reinforcement, big words for a little child who didn't know back then what they couldn't understand back then. Would later make them question and suddenly believe that they were simply born that way. At 20, I stood in front of a mirror. I searched for the mistake, not in the mirror, inside myself. I couldn't find one, but I heard a voice telling me, you are not enough. Toxic shame, big words for a little child who didn't know back then what they couldn't understand back then. Would later make them question and suddenly believe that they were simply born that way. Call it hypervigilance, parentification, intermittent reinforcement, toxic shame. Give every shadow a name. Tell the child who is still freezing inside what sounds like diagnosis was once a solution, was once survival, was once called being well behaved. You were never the problem. Now you are old enough to change your conditioning and find your way back to who you truly are. What kept you alive as a child does not leave you just because you grew older. Yeah.